All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen. And we are coming to you after the Rams' first preseason game of the season, where they won 13 to 12 against the Dallas Cowboys in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. And Jake, what a game it was. It was really like a very kind of grueling game, I think, between both of the teams up until quite literally the last 10 seconds. The last 10 seconds of the game when the Rams were able to score a touchdown and kick the extra point for the win. Uh, like I said, two very different tales of what you watched the entire game in the last 10 seconds. So, Jake, if you could give us your brief recap of what this Rams Cowboys game looked like, what would that be?
Yeah, Alexis. Well, obviously you had the starters out. There were people on Twitter complaining about that, but I think we know 7, 8 years of doing this, it works, right? It works. None of us complain. I'd rather the team be rusty as heck going into week one and be healthy than be ready to go for week one, but be without Matthew Stafford or be without Kyron Williams or Puka Nacua. Like I totally believe that this is the right approach. And the Cowboys also followed suit. A lot of their guys were also out. So it's not just the Rams doing this. But Alexis, when I watch a preseason game, I watch it a little bit more than, say, a casual fan, as you do as well. And I try to look away from the football. And it's something that took me a while to actually train my eyes to look away from where the football is at all times and really zone in on the offensive line and different things of that nature. This game was a wet dream for anybody that likes offensive linemen and has watched Rams offensive linemen in preseason in the past. Because Alexis, that was the best offensive line performance I've seen from a Rams preseason offensive line. It was so fun to watch. Logan Bruss emerging like right before our eyes at guard. Remember when they're like, he can't play guard, we're going to use him at tackle. They played him at right guard. He looked great. Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle. That was one of my guys in the draft. Was very excited about him. He looked great. Bo Limmer, before he went down with an injury, which we still know nothing about. Bo Limmer looked great at center. Then you look at Zach Thomas. I made a video on the YouTube, and I told people, look, Zach Thomas, he is going to have all that flack because people remember him as the guy that was, essentially protecting Matthew Stafford's blind side against the Bengals. Everyone remembers that game. That was horrific. He's not a left tackle. He's a guard. And the Bears made a mistake getting rid of him. He looked really good. And even H.A.R. Curry, who's probably not going to make this team, I thought he had a pretty decent performance at left tackle with all things considered. Alexis, the Rams only gave up 4 pressures, 3 of which were offensive linemen. 2 from the 4 were starters. Connor McDermott's the only other pressure that was given up, a guy that just joined the roster, knows nothing about this team. And the other one was Boston Scott and pass pro. So 4 pressures given up. Alexis, do you know how many pressures they put on Dallas? The Rams pass rush? 19. That's what you love to see. It's trench warfare. I understand we will get excited, and trust me, I'll have my moment. You know where I'm going with this. I'll have my moment, Jordan Whittington, to say what I will there. But I'll tell you right now, the thing that was most important, the thing that I was eyeing the most is the offensive line. And when you have a unit that has been banged up early on in camp, Jonah Jackson down, Alec Jackson down, Rob Havenstein down, KT Leviston down, okay? I wanted to see, does this team really have depth? I think they answered the bell.
I totally agree. And, people who listen to our show, especially for a long time, know how I feel about offensive linemen. I talk about offensive line depth to nauseum, as you do as well, and it's just a fixation of mine. And seeing them play the way that they did yesterday or 2 days ago now was absolutely delightful, to say the least. I mean, it was really impressive. And listen, I understand it's a preseason game. I understand it's not, a regular season environment. I totally get that, but you can't take away from how well they played because the players on the field are still playing their hearts out every snap, right? So you're seeing them play their best. You're seeing them give their all, and I was very impressed by that, especially because as Rams fans right now, we have to have the awareness to realize that, listen, three of our starters are injured. Different degrees of injuries. Not entirely sure what this means yet for week one, but because we have three guys who are studs, by the way, injured, we need to know that we have offensive line depth. I mean, we can't have Matthew Stafford going out there to begin the season with no protection. And I feel very confident after seeing the way our offensive line played on Sunday that he will be protected. So that was very, very fun to watch, very relieving, I would say, to watch as well. Jake, sticking to the offense, let's get into it. Let's get into the offense. Let's talk about Jordan Whittington.
He was
Whittington
he
is
was
his
fun.
last name, but I made a joke on Twitter and I said Winnington because I think he's going to win most of his matchups based on what we saw in this preseason game.
He's going to win the
Jake,
hearts of Rams fans everywhere.
I
That's
think
what
he
he's
already
going to win.
has.
I
Yeah, I
think he
mean,
already has as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, he played really, really well. He did start. He was out there for most of the game. I mean, he was out there until like the beginning of the fourth quarter, and you and I were like, "Oh my God, get him off the field."
yeah,
We've seen enough. We've seen enough. They left him out there for quite a bit. Jake, in my mind, after what we saw in this preseason game, and I don't want to jump the gun, but I think in my mind he's wide receiver four already. I think that he's a
so
very different receiver than Tutu Atwell. They're obviously not going to be used the same way. So let me rephrase this a little bit. I think that they're used a different way, but I do think Whittington is going to be used more in this offense. I think that
interesting.
what he brings to the table, I think, is very interesting. I think he's more versatile as a receiver. Um, and I just from what we're hearing out of training camp and what we saw him do in preseason, won't be surprised if he's like wide receiver three territory by the end of the season. And that's not taking away from Demarcus Robinson or Tutu Atwell. He's different. I think it's hard to
I
compare
think
like a
he's
Jordan
very
Whitting.
similar to Demarcus Robinson. I think that's actually who he'll
Yeah,
replace next year.
I mean that can make sense. So you would say that you would see Jordan Whittington passing up Robinson before
Um,
Atwell.
I don't know. So it'll be interesting, right? Demarcus Robinson's having a great camp. Tutu Atwell's having a great camp. Really, all around, everyone's looking good. Xavier Smith is looking good. Maybe that says more about the secondary, but regardless, let's try to stay positive here. And also, let's be realistic here. Jordan Whittington is a sixth round pick. I was very, very high on him. Did a video kind of breaking down my super sleepers, right? That was the video, and I said Jordan Whittington just screams Rams to me. Like that's what I said, word for word. Felt like the we not me aspect of his game was there. The way people just talk about him, like I was hearing so many different things. At, how well he was received at Texas, and he missed 22 games with hip injuries and clavicle injuries and all of that. And he did not give up on his career. He really worked his tail off and has been healthy ever since and ran a 4.45. So like this is a really good athlete. I think he's similar to Deebo Samuel. But I also think he's similar to Puka Nakua, and I think he has some, variation of, Robert Woods to his game. So I think you put all those three guys, and I think you have something in that, with Whittington. Now, I want to make this clear. I don't want to jump the gun here. I want to let Whittington be a rookie. I also want to stop hearing about how he's Lance McCutcheon 2.0. Lance McCutcheon was a UDFA who had no chance of getting drafted. Nobody that actually was a fan of his liked him until they saw what he could do. And Alexis and I covered Lance McCutcheon on this channel. And I'll tell you right now, you and I both were really excited about him. But we also kind of understood that there's a chance he doesn't end up being, super special or anything like that. And so it kind of bothers me when people immediately, their first thought was this Jordan Whittington guy who played big time ball at Texas. He wasn't just at some random school. Like, he was behind Adonai Mitchell. He was behind Xavier Worthy and the tight end there. So he was essentially the fourth option. And he could have been the first option. And we saw that in the preseason game. And I also want to say one thing before I send it over to you. You know, people always say, well, it's just the preseason. Well, keep that same energy, because when something good happens and you say it's just the preseason, but then, you know, when something bad happens, you go crazy about it. You can't have it both ways. It either has value and has stock, or it has nothing to you. And so I think too many typically go back and forth. Like, the good, they're like, and it's almost it's like the people out there that like automatically hate on movies just to make them sound sophisticated. That's kind of the vibe I get. Like, you don't want to be the guy who's like too invested because it's preseason, because people told you that you look like a casual, when in reality, those same people will hold preseason so strongly when someone plays poorly.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Also, I totally am jumping the gun on Jordan Whittington. I just want to
Do it. I
acknowledge
don't
to
care.
I just want to acknowledge to everybody who's like sitting there going, "Oh my God, Alexis is totally overhyping Jordan Whittington." Like, I know that, okay, I know that, guys, but I'm telling you, I have a really good feeling about him. I could be wrong, and
No,
but
I
you're
think you're gonna
right.
be right. I said he'd
Well,
be a gem.
and he's a rookie, so
Yeah.
I do acknowledge that. But I want everyone to know that like I am aware that I'm giving him very, very high praise for a rookie, and I stand by that. Sticking with the offense, Jake, let's talk about the running back situation. Blake Corum did not play. I didn't think he was going to play. I don't think you thought he was going to play. I know that there were some people online that wanted to see him play. I just didn't see it happening. I think he's locked in, obviously, at that running back two position. There's absolutely no need to get him injured in preseason. He's going to be used very heavily, in my opinion, this upcoming season. So that wasn't surprising to me that Blake Corum wasn't out there. What we did see was Boston Scott, Ronnie Rivers, and Zach Evans. And Jake, I really liked what I saw from our running backs, particularly Boston Scott, who, by the way, was called Ronnie Rivers for like the first quarter of the game. I don't know, know if you
So
caught that.
I
Um,
did. Ronnie
but
Rivers, I don't even think played, Alexis.
he didn't. I could have
Yeah.
sworn that he was out there. Or you know what? You're right.
So that was the
That it
thing.
was
That's actually a bigger story than any of what you just said. Ronnie Rivers did not play. We've heard nothing about injury. So I would have to assume,
well,
if that's the case, he's already made the team.
I would have yeah, I mean, because in my opinion,
Same could be said
so
with
here's the
Troy
thing.
Reader. Troy Reader's already made the team. People are already like, why do you have him in your projection for 53-man roster? Reader was in street clothes. He's locked in. They're not just gonna not
Yeah,
play him
you're right, Ronnie
if he's not gonna
Rivers.
make the team.
You're right. I literally have written down that Ronnie Rivers didn't play.
It's all good.
I was pulling the broadcasters
Yeah,
thing
hey,
where
you know what?
but
On brand.
I thought that Boston Scott looked really good. And
I
it's
did
not
too.
that it really surprised me. I've liked Boston Scott
Yeah,
throughout his career. I thought that he did really well. You know,
fun back.
Zach Evans did, you know, relatively
Eh.
well too, I thought. I mean, he's not I do think, and you and I have talked about this, we talked about it last season. The ship, I think, has sailed for Zach Evans, at least on the Rams. Um, I don't foresee them having him on the 53 man.
That would be
I
five
think
running
he's
backs.
yeah, I think that I think that that could have been a prove it game for him maybe just to have the tape. But Boston Scott looked really good, I thought. And he was fun to watch out there. Ronnie Rivers, as we just mentioned, probably already on the team. Four running back seems right for the Rams
Yeah,
right now.
Scott looked
But
great. Read his blocks
he
well.
did.
He's always been a
Yeah,
fun watch. He just,
he is.
yeah, he had a lapse in pass pro. I'm not. I would also say maybe that was a little bit more on Stetson Bennett, but um, to be honest with you, like, and I have to say this because we've watched fun running backs in the past that weren't even drafted. First thing that comes to mind, Xavier Jones, right? And Xavier Jones was somebody that was fun to watch. There's the other guy from Tulsa, Trey Watts. Justin Davis from USC. They've had some fun UDFA running backs. Aaron Green was a 7th-round pick, I believe, at TCU. They've had guys in the past, right? I don't know why those guys, and John Kelly as well, a 6th-round pick out of Tennessee, who's still in the league, by the way. I don't know why those guys didn't get the defense that Zach Evans gets. If Zach Evans runs 2.5 yards per carry, like on 12 carries, that's not good. That's not acceptable. We just watched Boston Scott run for 4.5. So that's not good. The offensive line kicked ass, and that to me is a red flag. Zach Evans has not done enough to make this team. He's not one of the best 53, and that's okay. Like, maybe he's on the practice squad, whatever. Like, that's fine. But it's the constant, well, Zach Evans should be playing over this guy. And are you kidding me? How is Ronnie Rivers going to make this? Ronnie Rivers is so much better than Zach Evans. It's not even worth arguing. Because the thing that is not really understood is that Ronnie Rivers does the little things. Zach Evans, and we've seen a lot of exciting performances from Rams, like I just mentioned Lance McCutcheon earlier, and we've seen guys like Justin Davis have a good performance in preseason and so forth. All of these like fun performances, like Trey Watts, whatever, even like Terrence McGee, if you remember him, I'm good at like bringing these guys back. But the point I'm making, Alexis, they've had these guys like John Kelly had some good preseason performances. What has Zach Evans done in the preseason? Preseason is when you should be taking off. And if I'm not seeing anything in the preseason and I'm not seeing anything in the regular season, then you're just basing this on college. And if you base it on college, well, that's how you get stuck drafting Bryce Love, who was an absolute star at Stanford. You're like, why isn't Bryce Love good? Like, college is great. We love college, right? College football. It's fun to watch, but you have to play the pro level. And I mean nothing against Zach Evans personally, but I think that this fan, push for him, he wasn't good against the Cowboys, and he hasn't really done anything to earn a spot. And Ronnie Rivers has worked his tail off, and Ronnie Rivers is somebody that they trust.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about Zach Evans, I feel like, quite a bit, especially last season, and our thoughts on him. I mean, like I said, I thought he did fine. I didn't think he had a bad game. I just think when
He
you
had a nice
look at
catch.
the level that, you're kind of wanting your running backs to be at and compared to what we have on the roster, I just think he's obviously running back 5 in a 5 running back room.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have ever seen from him kind of what's needed to be seen to feel like he's worthy of being on the starting roster. But Jake, let's wrap up the offense by talking about Stetson Bennett and the quarterback play, because going into the game, we kind of weren't sure how much he was going to play, right? Because that Bennett's dressing, that Dresser Wynn was also dressed. So we thought, okay, who is it going to be, half and half? Is it going to be Stetson through 3 quarters and Dresser Wynn the last quarter? I thought we would at least see a little bit of Dresser Wynn. I was wrong. They obviously wanted to keep Stetson Bennett out there. Stetson had a very it's such a weird game, Jake, to try and analyze, because let's be honest, Stetson Bennett didn't have a good game. He didn't have a horrible game, but he didn't have a good game. He made a good play at the end, which is what mattered. So it's like water under the bridge for me. I'm like, hey, he had that sick touchdown pass to win us the game. But if you analyze the game other than that play, didn't have the best game, didn't have a horrible game. Okay, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, he did throw 4 interceptions, not good.
5, one was called back.
Yeah, 5, one was called back. They were bad interceptions. They just were really bad reads. I'm not making excuses for it. Just saying that he simply could have had a worse game. But overall, Jake, I think Stetson Bennett, I mean, he has a long way to go. And it is a little bit, again, I don't want to do the age thing, but he's not a young 22-year-old quarterback. He's older. And I think that Rams fans' eyes have been a little bit open, saying, all right, where how long do you spend on the Stetson Bennett project, right? What does this mean? He's obviously quarterback 3. We have Jimmy Garoppolo for a reason, but the first 2 weeks of the season, he is quarterback 2 because Garoppolo is suspended. So Jake, what was your thoughts on Stetson Bennett's performance, and what do you think that means for his future with the Rams?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be fair to him in a sense that he hasn't played since August. And what I mean by fair is at least mention that. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have to be realist here, because whether it's unfair to say this or not, the reality is the Rams moved on from Carson Wentz and they signed Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody that maybe fits their scheme a little bit more. I do think it's still a mistake that they didn't go with Carson Wentz, but I really think it's a mistake because of those first 2 games. Because those first 2 games, Matthew Stafford, we saw him on his back against the Lions. They're playing the Lions again, a team that I would say is, I won't call them a dirty team because I don't think everybody on the team is dirty, but we've seen some really questionable contact, if you will. Obviously, Kirby Joseph, but I'm a little concerned because the point I'm making here is Garoppolo suspended for those 2 games. So Stetson Bennett, whether you like it or not, if the season started tomorrow, Stetson Bennett is backing up Matthew Stafford. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is the one that is backing up Matthew Stafford. And so, sorry, I have to hold you accountable. Okay. The 4 interceptions is not good. And here's the thing. Interceptions are not created equally. Sacks are not created equally. Touchdowns aren't created equally. You could have a touchdown that's tipped off of 2 guys. It's a horrible throw, and someone makes an incredible catch, and now you have a touchdown. You can have a touchdown thrown on a Hail Mary, and you have the same amount of touchdowns as somebody who led a actual impressive drive and threw a dot. Okay? That's the thing. But when it comes to interceptions, what I look for, especially in preseason, is how well do you control yourself in the pocket or outside the pocket? How well do you handle pressure? Well, guess what? Stetson Bennett was not pressured. Okay. He was pressured 4 times, right? 4. So let's just be honest here, right? There was hardly any pressure on Stetson Bennett. And in clean pockets, he threw 3 interceptions. 3 of his 4 were in clean pockets. The 4th one, yeah, he had a pressure. I think he could have done a better job. Probably stepped into the pressure a little bit too much. He had some great throws. I'm not going to, say he didn't. I mean, he made some really nice throws as well. But he's in the NFL. I need him I need to see why he's in the NFL. Those great throws need to be consistent. Like, I need to see that at least to justify why he's on the field. So he showed, yeah, that's why he's in the NFL. But in order to start, in order to even be a backup, you have to be able to take care of the football first and foremost. Okay. And it's not like the Rams were asking too much of him. Okay. He was wide open, like alone in the pocket, nobody around him. And he was thrown over the middle. And Alexis, some of his interceptions, I couldn't tell you what he was thinking. I could not tell you. I don't know if it was a height issue. It looked like and I'm not a big, he's undersized. I don't care about size. But when it comes to the quarterback position, he's 5'10", 5'11", whatever. I really started to wonder if it was a height issue, because when he pulled the trigger on that one play with the linebacker on that curl, the zone, the curl zone or whatever, he's in the zone right there. Okay. The receiver that it looked like Stetson Bennett was intended to throw to was 10 yards back behind this guy. Okay. There's another guy covering him, but if he lofts it over, okay, then yeah, he might be able. He throws a bullet into the linebacker's hands. I don't understand. So I don't know what that was. I understand, it's like, again, it's his first game since August, but I need to see more. And unfortunately, regardless of why you sat out or missed your whole rookie year, that is always going to come back and bite you. People are always going to use that. And to be fair, these are professionals. I understand the human element. I'm not trying to get into all that. He went through a lot of trauma. I get that. But at the same breath, if you take off a year and you're not ready and you're an older rookie, you're going to get a lot of flack. And so I thought Bennett showed a lot of guts. And I think he showed ultimately he is a winner because when push came to shove, he's got the clutch gene, Alexis. Not everybody has that. But now we've seen guys in the past who have all these, oh, he's got great mobility. Oh, this guy has a can for an arm. But what do we always hear? Like with Colin Kaepernick, for instance, like this guy, he's incredibly fast, right? He's got a cannon for an arm. He just rifles it. But what was the biggest thing? When teams, he had to actually stay in the pocket when his coach stopped letting him run because we had the injuries with RG3 and so forth. Colin Kaepernick proved he could not throw from a pocket. It was too much for him. He was a guy that needed to throw on the run. He was a guy that needed to be on the run and use his God-given talent with his legs. The reason I bring him up is because it's a great example. There are a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL who do one thing extremely well, probably having the 90 rating in Madden for that specific thing. But when it comes to making reads, when it comes to throwing with touch and accuracy, they don't have it. Or they throw with accuracy, but they don't have the arm strength. Or they, can make every read in the book, but they don't have any arm talent whatsoever to do it. There's a lot of different things. And that is the problem, is that Bennett has that clutch gene, but he has a lot more to prove because if he doesn't have anything else, that is what's going to keep him at that QB3 spot instead of eventually a backup and maybe a spot starter or a future starter down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all really well put. And listen, I have a complicated relationship with Stetson Bennett.
You do.
I received when we drafted him. I wasn't really a fan of the pick. I thought it was way too high. I didn't see it. I didn't like it. And the internet tried to crucify me for it. I mean, Rams fans and Georgia fans, if you guys remember during the NFL draft live stream, were in my mentions, in Jake and I's live stream during the draft. But I stood by what I said. He wasn't a fourth round pick. He should have never gone in the fourth round. I never saw it. I still say that right now, regardless of everything. I think Stetson, I mean, he played for a very good team at Georgia, but I think that team also made him look a lot better than he really was. I think the decision-making problem is obviously still there, right? We saw it, maybe it's a height thing, like you said. It really, what it came down to for me is he was just making terrible choices with all of those interceptions. He didn't really look that comfortable. He didn't really have good awareness. So that was really concerning for me to watch. Like you said, the offensive line did great. I mean, it wasn't like he was having defenders in his face and he was, it just wasn't going his way. I mean, he had time and he made the wrong reads and almost all of those, like you said, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even see what the point of that was, or tried to see where maybe he was thinking of going. So that was concerning to see. I think Stetson Bennett showed why he is really in that quarterback 3 territory. He has a very long way to go, I think, to be even considered in the quarterback 2 territory. And even then, like we've talked about, it's not like he's 22 years old. So I think that regardless of everything that I just said, if you're a Rams fan, how concerning is it? I don't know how concerning it is. Listen, right now it's concerning because for 2 games, he's the backup quarterback. So we have to get through 2 games of keeping Matthew Stafford healthy, knowing that Stetson Bennett is the backup, right? I would be terrified if Matthew Stafford went down against the Lions and Stetson Bennett walked out there in the first, second, third, even fourth quarter, right? That's
It'd
not a situation. It would be just absolute chaos, and I would say run the ball every single play. Take the L, right? So that's the problem here is you want to have a little bit more faith in a quarterback 3. Listen, I love the play that he won the game on at the end of the game. I thought it was great, but it's not enough. Yes, it won the game, but he has to prove that he can make it through a few quarters in an NFL game and be trusted with the football. I don't think that he proved that in the first preseason game. There's still more games to go. I hope we see more of him. Again, he could just be shaking the rust off. It is what it is, but at the same time, he kind of blew an opportunity, in my opinion. So I'll say that there. I don't want to hate on him too much because again, like we've talked about, yeah, he won the game. I mean, I tweeted out, I was like, I forgive him for everything that he did. We won the game.
Yeah.
But again, then the realist side of us comes out and it's like, all right, taking away that final play, let's look at the entire game up until the last 10 seconds.
I'm excited to see him this week bounce
Yeah,
back, and this
he
I'm
should.
not worried. Like if he takes care of the football, balls out this week against the Chargers, then I'll feel better. But
I wouldn't mind seeing him play the whole game again. If I'm being
I
honest,
mean
I know that.
he has to. They
Yeah.
need to find out, because the Rams are in a position here, and I know you probably want to talk about the defense to wrap this show up, but the Rams are in a position here where they need to know, do we roll with Bennett as the backup for the first two games, or do we sign like Ryan Tannehill? Because to be honest with you, I think Ryan Tannehill makes tons of sense. But at the same time, I think that they really do want to see what Stetson Bennett can do. And Stetson was drafted to be the backup of the future, right? It wasn't drafted to be the franchise quarterback. I know people laugh at that, but there are
Well, but
guys
people
that,
believed that. People
yeah,
believed that. Remember when I was getting like hammered and people
that
on
was
Twitter were
never,
like,
yeah.
he's Stafford's heir. That was never the
Remember what
plan.
I said on draft day? I said I like this pick because I thought he had better tape than I expected him to have. I felt like it was a little early, but I felt like he could be somebody that could be like a spot starter, good backup. And keep in mind, you're drafting a guy in the fourth round. He's going to be around for 4 years, does not have a fifth year option. So it works with the timeline. He's essentially the backup the entire time Stafford's around. That's how I looked at it, right? Like, I don't have an issue with
Yeah.
that. And if he ends up being something more, then so be it. I'm going to be honest with you. When I watch Stetson Bennett, he reminds me of John Wolford. I don't think he's going to be terrible, but John Wolford isn't somebody who you're like, yeah, I 1000% want him to start this game. John Wolford was somebody, when he first got a chance to start, you're like, this is kind of new. This is kind of exciting, because Goff had no pocket presence or any mobility, right? When we saw John Wolford do that, we're like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun. But you have Matthew Stafford. So the problem is, now that you have Matthew Stafford, those kind of fun quarterbacks, well, Matthew Stafford is a hell of a lot of fun, right? So that's the reality of it. But yeah, I think I want to see him bounce back, but I think Ryan Tannehill should be expecting a call from the Rams within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my opinion, you let Stetson play out the next two games, and
Yeah,
if it's not better than the first game, even if he just stays the same, I think you still call Tannehill. I think you have to see improvement, because that was not
I
up to
agree.
par. It just isn't. So looking at the defense, Jake, I really liked what I saw from the defense. We didn't see Jared Verse, obviously Braden Fisk, who I believe is still injured, Brennan Jackson, who we talked about recently got injured. We did see Cameron Kinchins for a bit.
Yeah, he looked
That
good.
he looked really good out there. Another rookie that looked really good, Jake, Tyler Davis,
Oh my goodness,
just
Alexis.
looked. And listen, I was not as high on him. I don't think I liked Tyler Davis, but I also wasn't like
I feel like we
when we
never
drafted
liked
him.
their interior defensive lineman picks, and then back-to-back years, Kobe Turner, and now Tyler Davis looked like an absolute brute. I'm
He
like,
did.
okay, I'm okay
Desmond
being
Johnson
wrong.
looked good.
I love Dez.
Um, Murchison looked good as well.
Yeah,
Corey Durden. I mean,
he almost had
Jake.
that sack. That was big. Sean
Yeah,
McVay was on the
yeah,
broadcast.
yeah. He was.
Yeah,
And this interior, listen, we're never going to replace Aaron Donald. He is irreplaceable in history. It's never going to happen. There will never be an Aaron Donald. If there is, it's not going to be for a very, very long time. But the Rams have really stocked up on the interior defensive line. I mean, Jake, watching, like we talked about, guys like Tyler Davis, Desmond Johnson, Laurel Murchison, Corey Durden. You add that into an interior defensive line that already has Kobe Turner, Bobby Brown, Braden Fisk, rookie. We didn't see him, but we know he's going to be there. I mean, it's just stacked. I mean, I feel really good about the interior defensive line. Like I said, you don't have Aaron Donald out there, but you have about six other guys that are
Yeah,
going to be forces to be reckoned with. So, we can't necessarily complain too hard
high
there.
motor guys.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about that or?
I
Um,
I'm so excited for TD. Because I'll tell you right now, and we both really didn't like that pick. I
mhm.
disliked the pick. I think you were more like, I had other guys I wish they went after. I did not like the pick,
Yeah.
and the reason is because I felt like he was somebody that was overdrafted, and they could get him later on, and they passed on guys that like Makai Wingo, guys that I really felt like fit, but I'm happy to say that it looks like I'm going to be wrong about another player. And I would hope, like, anytime I dislike a pick, and I love this draft, by the way, anytime I dislike a pick, I hope I'm wrong. Okay. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, I can't tell you how many times I can, because you get it all the time. People will be like, oh, and I'm sure you're happy that this, it's like, no, 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 no. I hope I'm wrong. If I'm actually mad about a pick, I hope they
Yeah.
are the best player ever. Okay. Truthfully, because I don't care that much about my ego. I really don't. Uh, he has this motor. He's electric. Just this. I mean, nonstop. Like, plays like his hair's on fire. Um, does a really nice job. Getting to the sideline, making plays there. And then you see just what he can do in the trenches, in the interior as a rusher. So he's great all around, and he is going to be very important for this team because they're going to need that rotation. Bobby Brown, they're going to need to give him a breather. They're going to need to give Kobe, a breather. They're going to need to give Braden a breather. And I think, I have them only keeping 5 interior defensive linemen. So I think TD and Deswan are going to be the ones that they keep. But I mean, you got an embarrassment of riches when it comes to Durden and Murchison potentially not making this team. They got a lot of guys that I really like.
Yeah. I mean, I was very impressed with our defensive front in that game, and not all that surprised necessarily. I thought they were going to do well, but I guess I could say they exceeded my expectations, which
Yeah.
was very heartening to see. Again, just losing Aaron Donald, you want to know that you're going to still have a competitive front. Jake, to wrap it up, what were your thoughts on the Rams secondary?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to give credit where credit's due. Nick Hampton looked great at edge. He
Hmm.
didn't play a ton, but he looks really good. He's a lock to make the roster. Van Valkenburg might not make the roster, but he has got the best motor. I love watching him play. Omar Spates at linebacker, the UDFA from LSU, has a legit shot to make this team. He was outstanding. But when I look at the secondary, I'm kind of undecided because I don't know what they're going to do. I saw Jerry Jacobs out there. Saw Trey. I kind of feel like Trey Tomlinson is going to miss the cut, and it sucks. But it's like the same feeling I got with Rochelle. I really liked Robert Rochelle. Felt like he had a chance, and then just never really got that chance. And I feel like Trey is kind of falling in that same footstep or whatever. They have some guys back there though, especially I think the safety room really exploded. Really impressed with Russ East. He probably shouldn't have been out there, but he had a really good game. Jalen McCullough, he's probably not going to make this team. There's just not a lot of spots. But McCullough looked great. And so did Jason Taylor the second, their 7th round pick from 2 years ago, I believe, from Oregon State,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
He's a baller, and I think what I'll say in closing here, Alexis, is this to me preseason, and when these guys are calling plays, not really offense because it's gonna be super vanilla, but the defense, right? The defense is a trailer. The defense is truly a teaser trailer for an upcoming movie. And the movie is the actual regular season defense. And what we saw from this trailer that got me excited is we saw breakneck speed to the ball. We saw high motor. We saw physicality. We saw consistency. And we saw textbook football. Okay. These guys were tackling. I mean, what the hell? You don't see that in a preseason game. You see a lot of missed tackles. You see a lot of bad angles. I thought the Rams did a really nice job. Chris Shula did a really nice job. These guys are ready to go. I mean, I think some of these guys that are going to get cut, I think some of these guys could play in a pinch. I mean, I look at like Jalen McAuliffe and I was like, this guy could be on the team. He could play on the defense this year. And that's not hard to believe because they've had UDFAs like Rodney McLeod Jr., who ended up being starters. This is a organization that, has used undrafted rookie free agents as a lifeline, essentially. They found a lot of talented players. Michael Hoyt, he didn't even play. He's gotten to that point as a former UDFA, did not play, and he's going to have a big-time role with this team. Troy Reeder, who we interviewed, Troy Reeder was a UDFA. Troy Reeder was starting on the Rams Super Bowl team that won it. And now he's a lock. Did not play. He's a lock to make the team. So they care about UDFAs. And I think, we should really, keep an eye on some of those guys because they might not make the team, but I think they're going to be on the practice squad and get an opportunity. Injuries happen. It's a long season. Hopefully they don't, but we know they will. And these are the type of guys that they might not get picked up by other teams, but if the Rams keep them in the building, they might have a shot to get on the field for them this year.
I totally agree with you. Just, we'll see. Again, we've talked about kind of this new secondary too, right? Like it's a kind of a group of guys that all have to build chemistry and work together. And I'm excited to see where it goes, especially once we get, some more starters out there. We'll see if they start to sprinkle in starters in week 2. I'm not sure that they will. I think week 3 of the preseason is when we're going to start to see some of these guys. But Jake, I think that does it for us for the recap of the first preseason game of the year. So we'll be back recapping the second one.
One step closer.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah, one step closer, almost there to the season. Man, just getting in the swing of things. I still feel like I'm getting back into the swing of podcasting because I don't do this as often as you do. So this is my preseason. This is me having to get acclimated to
You're doing fine, again. Honey.
Thank you. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Chris Jenner voice. Yeah, so we'll see. But guys, yeah, that's going to do it for us. As always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter/X. Jake is at JKBogan. My name is at the Alexis Craft. We'd love to hear from you guys. We will be back soon. But as always, until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.